This video is going to show you Solar Flawless Duality Dungeon on a Arc 3.0 subclass during the season of the Plunder. For those who just want to see that, then skip to the timestamps. Over that, I can show you what I used, etc. So obviously, if you do the Solar Flawless, you'll be rewarded with this emblem, as you see here, Untouched by Opulence. So obviously, I'm assuming if you're watching the video, that's what you're going for. So as I said, I wanted to use the Arc 3.0 subclass for this Solar Flawless, because as we know, Duality is the hardest dungeon to Solar Flawless out of them all. Some reasons are legit why it's harder, some reasons aren't legit, which I can talk about in the run itself, but as I said, that's the emblem anyways, right? So, as I said, we're using Arc 3.0, we're on Titan. So we're using Thunder Crash Super, we are going to use Fist of Havoc as well, so we're going to switch between the two, we can do that. We're using Thruster class ability for the dodge. We're using Seismic Strike as our melee, Storm Grenades, Aspects and Knockout, Touch of Thunder, Fragments are Spark of Shock, Magnitude, Resistance, and Ions. Pairing that with the exotic chest plate, Heart of Inmost Light for Storm Grenade spam. I wanted to see how good Storm Grenades were in this particular dungeon. So I am using this. It's best in slot for the Striker Titan as of right now. Weapon-wise, I used a Stasis Fusion Rifle with Chill Clip. And then we used a Arc Glaive, because it's synergized with Arc 3.0, called Nezarec's Whisper, which is crafted with enhanced demo, enhanced unstoppable force. I highly recommend a glaive in this, even if you can't get the arc one, just a glaive, right? It's very good. It's one of the best weapons for Duality, especially for Solar Flawless. And then we're using the exotic sword, the Lament, which we never take off, right? We use this the entire time. The build itself, so the helmet we have Ashes to Assets, more super on grenade kills, sword ammo finder, right, because we're using Lament, elemental charge, Elemental Ordnance, Grenade Kickstart. On the chest plate, double arc resist, one standard, one seasonal with a Lucent blade mod. Supercharged with enhanced sword scavenger. This is a big one. Make sure you put enhanced sword scav on. I can't tell you how useful it is putting that on there. And it's seasonal, it's only a +1. And the class piece has bomber, charged up, and surge detonators. So what all this means is that I'm running a ×5 charge of light Lucent blade build. We get elemental wells that thus give us charge of light via elemental charge via our grenade. Surge detonators will overload all enemies in the game, not just overload champs. So when you're using your Arc Titan, make sure you put it on. It's very useful. Bomber is as well. When you use your class ability, you get more grenade energy, which is all the time. Very good mod. And obviously Stasis Gauntlets for grenade kickstart, very good as well. There are other weapon combos you can use. There's tons of stuff you can use. This is just what I'm recommending that you use on the run that I've done. So between the interlude sections, between encounter to encounter where there's jump mazes, stuff like that, I'm just going to speed all that stuff up by 2 because I presume that you're watching this video for tips within the actual encounters themselves, not the jumping puzzles and stuff like that. So if you don't know the route, make sure that you know the route of the dungeon first before you even attempt Solar Flawless. You must know that first, because if you do die on the jumping maze at any point, you lose Solar Flawless, you need to begin it again if you're going for that emblem. So you need to do a little bit of research first before you even attempt it, unless you already know. But even if you haven't went for the Solar Flawless, I presume you've probably done team runs, so you'll know the dungeon and where to go, right? But yeah, I'm just going to speed it up just for editing purposes. Put a sniper on, that's a top tip as well. It just makes things a little bit easier because you can one-shot the bells from a distance, right? There's nothing worse if you've just got an SMG on at this part. It takes forever to get the bells. So start with a sniper rifle, right? Not that I'm going to use the sniper for anything. The sniper is actually pretty decent for Gahlran, because you can one-shot the bell bearers. I've seen a couple of people use that strat. I'm not going to, but I do know it's a good strat if you've got a decent sniper for it. But yeah, as I said, I've just got the sniper on just for the bells. Just makes things a little bit easier, quicker. So just follow the route on screen. You'll have your first set of enemies here. I'm going to switch to my actual weapon that I'm going to use, which is Riptide. Here, what I'm going to do is just actually clear out all the ads whilst getting some charge of light. As I said at the start of the video, if you didn't see the build setup, I have Elemental Ordnance on and Elemental Charge and Lucent Blade. So I get Charge of Light via Lucent Blade. But I have Supercharged and Charged Up on. Now, base Charge of Light will give you ×2 for free. Well, not for free, but you know what I mean. It'll start at ×2. Charged up is 1 stack extra, which is times 3. Supercharged is 2 extra stacks, which is in total times 5. I highly recommend that you invest it. I know it's a lot of mods to invest in and all that stuff, but I highly recommend that you do go for as many stacks of Charge of Light as possible, because it'll help you solo 2-phase all the bosses. And solo 2-phase and the bosses in this is huge. Now, since I've last done this, right, I must admit I haven't done much Duality. Solo flawless wise, barely team wise as well. But since last season, the change that I've noticed is that you can now have 2. You won't soft lock the second phase for damage. You will still get maximum time for each phase. It'll make more sense when I get there. It's sort of hard to explain. So you notice there, right? I've killed 2 Scions. You kill the Scions to pick up their symbol. Notice I only picked 1 symbol up. This is key. Kill them both. Kill both Scions. Right? Pick one of the symbols up. Get your bell bearers, because obviously the 2 bell bearers at the opposite end of the map will then open the bell. Right? Thus being able to escape, because you've got that timer. And if you don't leave before that time is gone, then it's game over. Right? But because we picked up 1 symbol, obviously we're just doing 1 symbol at a time. It's not like a team run. But when you go back in there, there'll be a fresh Scion spawned in, even though you can get his symbol. This is key, because you're going to kill that Scion later for extra time at the boss. Now, before last season, that only happened on phase 1 and sometimes wouldn't happen on phase 2, meaning that phase 2's damage would be far less. You get 15 seconds, 10 seconds less. But now it's more consistent. Gahlran, you don't seem to soft lock. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So Gahlran's a far better fight now than what it was with them making that change. When they made it, I don't know. I haven't kept my eye on this dungeon too much. But that's just a big thing I would just like to state. Right, now this is phase 1 of the first phase. So obviously this isn't going to be DPS, because I've got another symbol to do. So when you come in here, obviously make sure you prioritize all the nightmares. Pull out your fusion. This is what we've got Riptide on. Riptide's a fantastic weapon. So is the Glaive. The Glaive is decent, but the Glaive's a little slow at times if the nightmares misbehave themselves. What I mean by that is them glitching out, slashing you into a wall, which I've had them kill me. If 3 or 4 of them do that and they can physics you in a wall, that is a problem. Whereas the fusion just sort of stops them, especially with the chill clip, and it one-shots. Especially when you pick up their nightmare buff thing. So notice we went back for the symbol, right, that we had earlier. So we went for that. That I killed that Scion on the first phase. He's respawned, notice. So when we get to damage, when we're killing those nightmares, there'll be an additional Scion nightmare that also contributes to DPS time on Gahlran, which is huge to know this. Once you know that part, DPS is a cinch, right? You'll be able to easy 3-phase, but comfortably 2-phase, as long as you follow my tips with the Lament build. You'll be able to do it. But I can see people still messing it up on the Gahlran 2-phase, because Gahlran is very inconsistent with Lament and swords, because sometimes your Lament combo will just miss and stuff. It's not so much like Lament is an issue, right? But so is Gahlran. Like when you get to Caiatl's DPS is far more consistent than what Gahlran is, because Gahlran can move around, knock you about and stuff like that. So this is where we're using the fusion. We'll use our abilities as well, why not? Of course. Maybe save a nade, though I wouldn't nade in there unless you've naded right at the very start, because you want to nade these bell bearers. Right, that's what I suggest. Nade those. 1 nade will take them out just about, as long as they're close. Then I'll use a super. Then it's all charged Lucent Blade. Right, notice obviously we've got the keen going on. So we need to get to using our sword, right? Consume these stacks of Charge of Light. Whilst also using your Thruster dodge to get storm grenades. I would recommend you need to do at least 2-3 storm grenades in this DPS for good damage. Which you can do, just keep an eye on your sword recharge rate. That's number 1. And then the second one is your Thruster dodge. And just keep doing that so that you get your storm grenade back. I've showed you the build already. Obviously it's not firepower. And I know people are going to say, why didn't you use firepower? Well, you don't need firepower because I've got bomber and grenade kickstart. And if you use firepower, you don't have no Lucent Blade. That is a worse setup for this. Whilst firepower is amazing for other things in the game, not so much for this. You want to focus on damage. You are solo, you need all the damage you can get, and Lucent Blade helps out Lament massively. And so does the Storm Grenades. This is the main reason why we're on Arc 3.0, to see what its damage is like. And as I say, I must admit, it's a decent clear with the Arc Titan. I thought this was going to be not as good as it was, but the survivability, surprisingly, on Arc Titan is decent. Maybe not as good as Solar Titan, no. But you get health regen on melee kills with the Aspect Knockout. And you can start to do a lot more damage once you're amplified and stuff. So there's a good amount of survivability on it. And as I said, the Storm Grenade's going to take out a lot of stuff for you, a lot of enemies. And there's the Shoulder Charge. It blinds enemies. The Seismic Strike is very good in this as well. It will one-shot a Bellbearer. Right, just like what the mini hammer would do, same thing, but it'll one shot and it'll blind the one next to him. That'll come in super useful for Caiatl. Not so much now. Obviously, we're using the Glaive as well. Now, you need to understand with the Glaive, this is a crafted one, of course. I've crafted for maximum shield duration. Okay, shield duration is what you want to craft it for. If you want to see a video of me breaking down the craft of this Glaive, then let me know, because I've done a lot of Glaive testing on what's really good. It's got demo, which is exceptional with the Arc Titan, because you're going to get even more Storm Grenades. And I've got that Guard, which it's a frontal shield, but you get so much resistance, it stops knockback damage off bosses and stuff like that. The Glaive's really good, and it doesn't consume ammo on melee. 3 melee swings to clear out a Bellbearer. And you get health regen off Nightmares, or if you're surrounded by adds. Glaives, literally, for the Solo Flawless, are probably the best weapon in slot, especially for Caiatl. I know that there is the Arc Waveframe GL, or Waveframes in general, and they have got their uses. They are like 10 out of 10 top tier weapons, course. But the Glaive, you're going to see the pros and sorry, not the cons, just the pros to using this Glaive. It doesn't shine so much on Gahlran, and you wouldn't need to run one so much. But I've just got it on because I hate swapping weapons in mid-runs, if you haven't noticed. It's something I really do hate, having to switch loadouts and stuff like that. I like to use as much as one loadout as possible in runs, right, in general. Right, that's what I like to do. Now, this is not DPS after this, right, so you can see I'm actually taking it a little bit more casual. I'm not spamming the fusion. So this is ammo management. Look at my fusion, I'm 8 shots. That's only just enough, really, to deal with one phase of Nightmares plus the Bellbearers, maybe. So I'm starting to sort of ease up on using ammo there. You let the Glaive do the work. Obviously, it's double special, so I will get less special overall, but I'll get far more heavy. Because it's double special heavy, that means you just get more heavy overall. When it's the same if you run double primary heavy, you get more heavy drops. Just notice, look at all the bricks I'm getting. I never struggle for Lament ammo, never ever, because of the double special setup, and ammo finder as well with the enhanced scavenger. So a top tip as well is when you've got this the symbol, don't dunk that symbol on your side until you clear out both Bellbearers. Right, because it just makes it far easier for people, because then you haven't got to backtrack and do. You can focus on the Colossus that comes out the blinds. I mean, I know you can kind of skip him and quickly snipe the Bellbearer and sorry, not the Bellbearer, but the Bell itself, and then go to the Nightmare Realm. But I think the timing's going to be too tight for people. I'm just going to play it as if, you know, somebody who just wants to get this done. A lot of that is used in mind for the player, right? But I do understand you could skip the Colossus, but as I said, I don't think it's beneficial for most people to be doing that, because they're probably not going to have the pace, the speed to sort of snipe that Bell and then go to the Realm and then be ready and stuff like that. Now, notice, I've got the second Scion. This is phase 2. This means I get more time. Look at the timer, Nightmare collapsing. So I'm 50 seconds at the start of damage here. The super isn't the best, but what the Thunder Crash is doing is it's getting me close to the boss at the very minimum. The Thunder Crash ain't going to do that much damage anyways, because I haven't got Curious of the Fallen Star on. Not that I recommend putting that on either, because while you're swording, you can do plenty of storms whilst you're swording. So I think Heart of Inmost likes the better play here. The easier solo 2-phase. You could solo 2-phase with the Curious, but I was just wanting to sort of Storm Grenade whilst doing Lament. pretty often. So I stick with the Heart of Inmost Light, and you can see it's pretty consistent now. I've got more than 10 seconds and the boss is dead. So it's a very easy solo 2-phase this. The only thing that might not be easy to hit is if Gahlran misbehaves and you miss sword combos, not so much because of Lament, although Lament has been guilty of it. It's more so Gahlran. Gahlran is annoying at times. Try not to fight him on slopes. Try and fight him on flat surfaces in the middle of the map if you can. And you'll find that your swings should hit. Now, there is a skip on the right-hand side. I'm not going to show you that because I can see people falling down and losing the soul force, which would be super dumb if you're doing that. So I ain't showing you that. I'm just showing you how you just do it properly. Just activate the levers and stuff. I've sped this footage up as well. The best tip I can tell you is that there's a jump coming up that could definitely wipe people if you don't know how to make it first go. I recommend Lion Rampants. I know the sword and you've got Seismic Strike to bridge gaps and stuff like that. I just think put on Lion Rampant. Anytime you're doing a jump puzzle, just put on Lion Rampants for Titans. Just put it on. It makes things a cinch. Look at this jump. This jump would actually generally be pretty difficult. Not too much now. Lion Rampant just makes it you can control your jump. Super easy. Now we just need to open the vault. So the combination is 3, 2, 2. So 3 on this statue. Right, and then we come around here, and then it's 2, 2. And that will open up the vault. And obviously we're coming to the vault encounter. So with the vault encounter, I think it's probably harder than Gahlran to solo flawless. Because of time constraints, and a lot can go wrong in it. I don't think it's harder than Krait, although, I mean, it depends on what difficulty you're talking about. Masters are an absolute nightmare. But anyways, going back to what I'm doing here is something I haven't mentioned. I'm going to put on a barrier order rifle for backup, just for these phalanx shields. Right, I'm going to stick with the glaive. I know that the waveframe GL is going to melt these phalanxes, but I ain't going waveframe. I'm sticking to my guns with the glaive because I really want it, as I say, show the glaive as much as possible. We'll stick with Lament as well, but I've swapped super. So notice I've swapped my super to Fist of Havoc. This is the strat on Arc Titan, and it makes complete sense to do this. Thunder Crash is pointless. You're pointless using Thunder Crash on this. So, because the build's going to do everything for you. So I'm just going to show you, I'm just going to demonstrate how easy it is for pretty much anyone just to solo the vault with this build. If you are a Titan main, which there's a lot of Titan mains at the minute, let's be honest. Hence the reason for the video, for doing Titan first. So, obviously this lends the same mechanics from previous. There's still the bells, there's still bell bearers, there's still the Nightmare Realm, but you've now got symbols, right, and you need to know which symbol corresponds to what. So I've got dog and axe there, I believe. So I have a little graph next to me at all times, actually on the top of my TV, just to sort of, I can quickly glance at it and say, all right, this is top left, that's top right, that's bottom. I quickly glance at it and I know where I'm going straight away. I know the dungeon's been out quite a long time, but I've actually only solo flawless four times. Because I never felt the need to sort of flawless this a lot of times, Duality, so I've only done it a couple of times. So often when I come back to the dungeon, I always look at my graph just to double check. Because if you get the wrong symbol and you go to the wrong place, you get Nightmare Collapse and you lose time, and it will wipe your solo flawless. Most folks will know off by heart all the corners immediately. Boom, top left, bottom right, whatever. Right? That's fine. I'm just, for the less experienced players at these, because the chances are probably those people are watching who want to get the emblem, write down on a bit of paper on each corner where dog is, where cup is, etc. And do the same for the boss fight. For vault and boss. For Gahlran you don't need to, because it literally shows you where the symbols are. Whereas these encounters don't per se. And the Nightmare Realm has bad visibility and stuff. Because once you get there, you don't know that you're at the right side until, like for somebody who didn't know, you wouldn't know until you saw the walls inside the area. So it's not completely obvious. Unless you already know. But anyways, that's phase one. Notice I used a super, right? So we used a super in there to clear out the phalanxes, the arc shield guys. Now, Lament is barrier based. But Lament cannot go through a phalanx's shield. Why? Don't know. It's always been like that. It's a shame because it would have been great if it did. but it doesn't. So what I'm doing is using a build. Obviously, you can see I've just got my super back with Ashes to assets, right? With the storm grenades. So I'm getting my super every phase I go in there. I'm going for one symbol at a time. I'm not speedrunning it by doing 2 at a time, because that would require some speedrun tactics and stuff like that. And I'm not here to show you that, because it's high risk, high reward type thing. It's for speedruns that. So I'm not going to show you or advise you to do that on your first solo floors. Maybe on your second and third, start pushing your runs for sure. But this is just to show someone on their first go, what do they do? So like you can see, the super's just dealing with the barriers. The phalanxes so easy. Just shoulder charge them. Don't use the heavy attacks so much. It's slow, but it is good if they're grouped up. It depends if they're grouped up or not. They're not always grouped up, the phalanxes, but they are the biggest issue, because you need to clear out those enemies plus the nightmare that spawns to get the end result of the bearer, right? Also, when you're coming back after you've done that, you need to remember which side the bell is not on, because that's the side the bell bearers will be. So quickly glance. You should know already, because you've already shot the bell, but I understand it's chaotic. Just look for the side that the bell's not on. That's where your bell bearers are, because you need to obviously clear them. I do that afterwards. Some people do it before, then go and kill the bearer, which is probably better for time if you're trying to speedrun it and stuff and get 2 symbols. That's a probably better way of doing it. But in the grand scheme of things like this is the easier way of doing it. Now for damage. So we'll start with a storm grenade, because what that's going to do is it's going to jolt that ultra, and it's going to go to all the other enemies. Right, it's gonna basically clear out all the enemies. It's gonna do ag clear and damage for us. That's what makes it so good. So try and do your storm grenade thrusted dodge as much as you can. You can do it whilst your sword is equipped. Right, you'll see me do that quite a bit. Also, it's farmed up super for us, so we've got super for the next phase. Right, so we're gonna have a super for every symbol. There's 2 symbols per run, so we'll have 6 supers. Right, but we will use our build our advantage, you know, by trying to get super each phase. Obviously, we've already got it, so we don't need to do so much here. I'm just trying to manage the level of the room. Try to make sure that you're not overconfident with this room, and that you try and leave too many adds alive. You know, between phases, just have a little quick glance. Is there too many adds up in this room? Because as I said, it could cause a risk of you dying later on. It's not like we're on solar, right? But as I said, there is a good survivability thing with Arc. Spark of Resistance was a big one for me with this. It does stack on top of tier 10 Resil, which I always recommend that you run that, especially stuff like this. But yeah, I ran a less discipline as opposed to what I generally do, tier 8 as opposed to tier 9. But I had, instead of having the feedback mod, fragment, sorry, I put on the resistance mod. But then, you know, went, you know, that route. The more resistance, the better, because there's physics in this dungeon. There's backpacks that can one-shot you. I've mentioned this and talked at length about this on my other solos, on all the other solos, and I've done it on every class. Obviously, they were from last season. But you need to be cautious with the backpacks, and you need to understand them on what is going on. So if you body shot them, right, say you just body shot them with an auto rifle, their backpack is classed as a separate entity. It's an item. That will then lay on the floor. If an ad or a boss stomps you whilst the backpack is close, it will do explosive damage to you. Now, there are certain weapons that disintegrate the backpack, like a fusion rifle. That's why a lot of people use fusion rifle in Duality, because it disintegrates the enemy, the bellbearer, and the backpack. Right, the glaive doesn't. That's one downside to it, but it has so much resistance that you can actually survive it. I've actually had it where a boss has stomped one of those backpacks, but I've guarded with the shield and survived actually pretty easily. So like I said, the glaive's huge, but as I said, I'll talk more at length about how good the glaive is when we get to Caiatl, because that's where it truly does shine for that. I always like to start off with an initial nade at these stairs, clear out the adds behind me, then our super. As I said, it's a little RNG if the adds are grouped up or not, but if they are grouped up, the better it is for you, the quicker you clear it is, the less chance of you losing time and not being able to get back to that bell in time, because it only takes a couple of seconds of mistake, of you going to the wrong area at the wrong time. Maybe you went to the wrong side for bell bearers. That is a high risk of you maybe now not having the time to sort of do it. Like if you're getting back to that bell with only 10 seconds left, you're probably slightly too slow. Just saying. You should be getting to that bell 15 seconds. Some rounds I might be only getting there to 10 seconds. Again, depends. Like these bell bearers right here, they're spread out. It cost me a bit more time. Like I'm about 20 seconds. So even that little mishap there, that isn't even my fault. It's the game. I got back with 15 seconds. It's cost me like 5 seconds. This is how you need to look at that nightmare realm. Is every misstep, even if it adds hiding behind a pillar, that's costing you time. That's where the super is so good for it. It makes it super consistent. This of clearing out those adds in time. The sword obviously just melting down the nightmares and stuff. And the lightning grenade just, as I say, helping you get the supers back whilst also clearing out the entire room. And let me remind you, there's a lot of adds that spawn. They are unlimited adds on this encounter. And generally that's in this room as well. The Cabal can melt. That's why I do highly recommend Arc Resist for this. Like, you should have Arc Resist on the entire time. But Arc in this, you do take a lot of Arc because a lot of it's legendaries and stuff. Whereas on Caiatl, it's not so much Arc, it's more, well, it's a bit of Arc and it's more solar, but that's where the seasonal model come in, because it's solar and Arc. There's barely any void in this, right? There's just one dude that does void, I think. Like elemental damage to you, so you would never need to spec void resist. It's always Arc solar, Arc solar. So just double checking our symbol. Use the glaive, and then we'll just rinse and repeat. I'll just quickly talk about an important issue, is the bells. So obviously we know how the bells work. You shoot said bell to get to the nightmare realm. That's your passage between realms. But the problem is that sometimes the bell can kill you. Now this was a newish bug from last season, and it seems to be still the bug now, because I've been actually, the run before this I actually lost to Soul Falls because a bell killed me. At Caiatl, phase 2, boss was less than half HP. I was on the final phase, I shot a bell with my fusion rifle, right, I ran off. As I ran, the game just physics me or something, it went black. That's always a bad thing. If you shoot a bell and the screen stays black, there's some lag issues, right? There's going to be some issues, and you might die, and I did. Now I've got a good internet overall for my area, right? So it's all I can suggest is, if that happens to you on any run, knock off your platform, knock off your PC, your console, whatever, restart Destiny 2 and start again. And that's exactly what I've done, and it didn't happen again. That's just a tip I can give for you, but it is connection based. That a couple of people have said about the bells when they kill you. It's not just their side, it's our side as well. It's what your connection to the game's like. So turn off any other devices, like any mobile phone stuff. Just turn it all off. Just be safe. Just have your whatever it is. I know not everyone can do that because they're living with families and wives and stuff. And you can't just tell your wife, look, I'm doing a Soul Floss, turn off your tablet. They ain't going to do that either. But I'm just saying, just be safe. If you're trying to do Soul Floss, try and make sure your connection's decent. Check it. There's actually a way you can check it on Destiny. A little white bar just to see how good it is. And another tip is, don't do Soul Floss dungeons on background maintenance days, which I believe that's today. So don't be doing it today, because that is the worst time. Luckily I just done it before that maintenance window. So don't do it then as well. Just wait. Even though it's like only background maintenance, I just don't trust it. The last thing you want to do is do a perfect execution of a perfect run and then die to a bell. That's not your fault, right? So again, don't do it on those days. Always check on Twitter the status of the game before you start Duality, right? Just because of that. Like, the other dungeons are nowhere near as buggy as this. Grasp is fixed. Grasp is pretty decent. There's not much bugs in that. Shatterthrone's always been decent, right? Yeah, the other dungeons are decent. Pit of Heresy, always been decent. It's had bugs in it, but not bugs that kill you. So, That's just a tip about the bells. So it is a thing that don't believe what people are saying it's been fixed. It hasn't. Not fully. It's still something that can happen to you, right? So just a thing, something to let you know about. So I think we're on the one of the final bosses. I think, as you can see, it's pretty fluid when you have a super like that. Like that's Fist of Havoc being useful there, Roman super. Sometimes it is useful to have a Roman super in solo play. Now there has been a couple of debates about Roman super versus instant super and damage wise, and a lot of raid people have, raid fanatics have pointed out that, well, a Roman super is bad because it takes so long to get your super out of the way, whilst if you used a one bang super, right, then you can do more damage, like Thunder Crash or Gahlran Storm. Then you can pull out some weapons. But here's the thing for solo play: the Roman super is still useful because you can use it as a defensive tool because of the resistance that you get from having a Roman super in the first place. There's sometimes when I want to arc time with storm grenades where I don't want the Thunder Crash or need it. Sometimes I will go on a Fist of Havoc because you're going to get resistance for so much longer. See, with an instant super, you will get the resistance whilst you popped it, but as soon as it's popped, like a second after, you don't get the resistance. So you're a sitting target. So if you won't get an overshield if you're not using Curious of the Fallen Star, which chances are you aren't, because you're using Heart of Most Light. So for difficult stuff, sometimes it's decent to have a Roman super in your arsenal to survive. It's a plan B. Think of it as like a bubble, even though it's not a bubble, but it's something to use when you're like almost one shot and you're certain you're probably going to die. You pop it, you stay alive. I think that's useful in solo play. It is for DPS checks, damage checks. No, they're terrible. We know that. Solo play, no, they're decent, very good. You know, like Behemoth, very good super for defensive capabilities for solo play, right? So there's a lot of it's two different things we're talking about. So Roman supers aren't bad. It's just how you use them and what they use and what you're using it for exactly. So that's the vault encounter done, obviously. Now we'll just speed it up to the boss. We're going to take this auto rifle off. I barely needed to use it. It was there as a backup plan. This is just a backup weapon, just in case maybe I whiffed my super or something. It was just there as a backup, but I didn't need it. You saw that, so I didn't even need a barrier weapon. The build, the super, done everything I wanted it to. We'll switch back to what we had on. We had to take off Grenade Kickstart, so I've got that back. And now we're to the boss. So the Caiatl, final boss. I would say it's probably the toughest challenge for people because of the DPS check, because of what you've got to do during DPS. It's kind of very similar to Kel Echo. People struggle DPS-wise because they can't multitask. The snipers plus damage, it's the same for this. People can't seem to, even in teams, you see teams struggle multitasking the 6 bell bearers plus getting ready to shoot the bell for damage. This setup that I've got on, and the weapons are all catered specially for that. The fusion's going to freeze the bell bearers. It's great for just killing them quickly. The glaive's going to stop us from getting stomped off map or backwards, because if you get stomped backwards by Caiatl or booped backwards by the bell bearers, Caiatl could then go to the bell and then you've lost all your damage and you've got to repeat everything again. You don't want to do that. So this setup's going to stop that, and the sword as well is going to stop that to a degree, but we're going to mainly use Lament for damage, not using it on bell bearers, because we want as much damage as possible to solo two-phase this fight. If you can solo two-phase this fight, it's a safer way than three-phasing. Even though the three-phase might be that you're a bit more careful with your damage and stuff, but the longer this goes on, the longer you might wipe to a random bell killing you. You want this fight to be as least as you want. Like if I could solo one phase with Lament, it'd be perfect, but you can't. You can solo one phase with like linears, Cataclysmic and stuff. I could have went that route, but I understand not everyone's got a fully crafted bait and switch Cataclysmic, which is best in slot for this, right? So I've used that in mind, right, and used this loadout because of stuff like that. So every time you dunk a symbol, because we've obviously have two, we've just dunked one, you will get a spawn of the loyals, the royalists or whatever. These solar shields. You want to take those out each phase. Now you can back-to-back dunk, right? But it's not always safe to do that. So what I'm doing is I'm actually just taking this fight at a casual pace, showing you that it's not very threatening. I'm even playing at the back of the map, which is actually top tier to do that, because you can have your storm grenade get more of the adds. They don't jump left and right or hide behind the pillars so much, although you would think that I would get more heat from the adds from back here, but it's actually not so bad. With the speed boost and stuff like that, you're outpacing all the snipers, and I'm just going back and forth, cycling my abilities, Seismic Strikes, Lightning Grenade, Storm Grenade, sorry, Thruster, and then rinse and repeating. But don't have your Glaive out, right, the entire time, because you won't get melee energy properly. I don't think you do. I don't think you get melee energy because your Glaive takes over your melee ability. So the game thinks you've got full melee energy when you haven't. I think that's what's happening. So don't do that either. Use the Glaive here and there when you feel like it, but you don't need to use it completely at all times, right? It will give you health back on kills and stuff. Not every kill, right? It's got a little bit of an inner cooldown, the extrovert origin perk, right? But it does give you some health, but not on every kill. Whereas your melee ability will give you health on every single kill. Your melee. So I use it like not just your Seismic Strike, but your uncharged one as well. So what I do generally, like we've got here the symbols. You can see that it's not it's not the top two top ones. It's one back, one top. When it's like that, what I do is I get one of the symbols, focus on whichever one I feel like. Then I do a Storm Grenade in middle to take out one set of the Bell Bearers. Then I go and get the other symbol off the other side, and then Storm Grenade the second set of Bell Bearers. Whilst all that, because whilst you're running from Scion to Scion, the Lightning Grade's killing the Bell Bearers for you. Now, not every time, as it really depends on RNG, on how they're grouped up and stuff like that, but it's going to at least damage them, and you clean all that up later. So when you're going in the Nightmare Realm for symbols, this build makes it super easy. Time-wise, you haven't a problem. Everything's easy for that, right? So it's not too bad. And I'm showing you, as I say, when you come on the outside, where Caiatl is, it's also not too hectic. Right? You just need to be patient. Use more of your abilities than your weapons for this. Right? Your weapons aren't really going to come in too much. It's more for when you're doing DPS to kill. That's what these weapons are for. Although, you know, spam your fusion here and there on those on the solar shields and stuff, just to sort of melt them down. You can just be selective with it. So we've primed the bell. The reason why I'm not even going to shoot the bell, the towers yet for DPS is because you get an extra wave of the solar shields. Now these are going to have to be dealt with at some point. So even if we went now and rushed it, we'd have to come back here and deal with that spawn. I wouldn't recommend doing that. So you want to try to keep on top of your adds each phase. Right? Do the phase now rather than later. It's better just doing it now. That's what I think. Because you're going to come out of that damage phase with no ammo as well. Stuff like that. Although your abilities will take over, but still. Point is just clear your adds before each phase. That's what I recommend for it. You will get unlimited Scions. Now a spawn has just happened there, so I sort of caught off guard, but they are unlimited, so you've just got to keep an eye on that. So the room won't completely be clear, but you know, at least manage your adds. So this is the first damage phase that we're doing, right? So what I'm going to do is use the Storm Grenade in middle and clear out the two Bell Bearers in middle. Right, now he's went left. Okay, so we'll go left, we'll use a shoulder charge here. Okay, do that. Then we'll take down the bell. Notice how good the Glaive done at taking the Bell Bearers out. Then we talk Lament damage. Obviously it's 12 seconds of damage that you get. So do as much Lament combos as you can. Right, now he's going, she's going middle, so we'll get middle bell. We've obviously already got middle bell bearers. So this is where we decided to do our super. I don't recommend doing your super until you're like ready to do it. I wasn't ready on the first phase, so I didn't do it. It doesn't matter which phase you do it on, just do it on one of them. We've cleared out the bell bearers on this side. This is where the glaive. So notice I'm guarding the entire time there, because the sniper's hitting me the entire time, right? But while I'm waiting for Caiatl, I've got my guard up, right? So I can sit and wait there, not a problem. Generally, you'd have to move left and right, maybe take out some of the snipers, and it would screw it up a little bit for you, right? But look at our damage. So this is easily a two-phase because we have the max stacks of Lucent. We did not waste any stacks of Charge of Light on the bell bearers. That's the key thing. Don't use your sword. It might be tempting to use your sword on the bell bearers, but don't, because the glaive is gonna do everything for you. You can see we were able to block the boop of the bell bearer, right? So they wouldn't knock us back, and we can two-shot them, right? So we can also two-shot them, so they're taken out fast. And whilst you're guarding, sort of trying to take out a bell bearer, the Caiatl obviously is going to be running towards that bell. Caiatl will try to stomp, which is good because it gives you more time, but you won't go anywhere. You won't move because you're guarding. It negates boss stomp, knockback, which is the biggest takeaway from this, right? I could do this on any class, anything, as long as I've got a glaive on, anything, because it just makes it so easy to sort of, as I say, micromanage both the boss and the bell bearers because you're guarding. Make sure that you are farming up energy as well. You can see how much energy you've got with your glaive. So make sure you're using it from time to time, like not the light swing, but the heavy attack. That's how you gain the energy for the glaive. Also, when you're putting in the symbols, block while you're doing it. May as well just block while you're doing it, especially if there's a fresh wave of snipers coming out. You can block as you're putting it in, and it just gives you that resistance just before the animation starts for you to dunk. So this, literally all we're doing now is just rinse and repeating. We've got enough damage on phase 1 to basically say that it's a done deal, but there is a chance that we could still miss a bell and Caiatl could escape, as that's what the fight's all about, stopping Caiatl from escaping so you can damage her. So that could be a thing, right? So it's not set in stone yet. I've still got a bit to do, but I'm just saying the damage that we're doing on phase 1 means it's going to be easier on phase 2. So if something we are allowing for mistakes, so if something did happen where we missed a bell, we could still potentially kill her anyways, or you know, we mess up our Lucent blade stacks, or we mess up our sword swings, or you know, what have you. So now we just need to do a bit of ad clear still, because there's still some of these solar shields up. Just trying to cycle our abilities. This glaive has demo on it as well, I think I've already mentioned, which is very good with this, just for the fact that, you know, obviously we're using Stormgrain build, so it's got Unstoppable Force on as well, which is a very good enhanced trait. Well, the enhanced trait, sorry, is the same as the standard trait. It's just a second. It's just a second longer. It's not the exact same. It just gives you 1 second. So I think standard's 4, enhanced is 5. That's the difference between the two. Seismic Strike, blind, and if I don't one-shot, then at least I've blinded them. See, you can see, as I say, I've pretty much casually cleared this room. Not much thought to it, and it's pretty good. Just need my second set of symbols, so it's dog and axe. So that's what I'm going to prioritize. I never use middle as well, no, it's only if I really need to, as in the bell. Because the thing is, if you clear out all bell bearers on the outside on phase 1, and then you go back to then you come back out, you're going to get a fresh set of 6 bell bearers every time, which is a waste. So what you want to do is only clear out left and right bell bearers, yeah, and leave the 2 bell bearers up in mid until the latter end of the phase or something. just so that you're not getting fresh sets of bellbearers for no reason at all, right? You look at your symbols and you just judge on what's the best side to take. But I generally just, as I say, take out left and right. I don't use that middle bell. Very rare do I. And also for damage, the reason why I don't use it for damage, if you didn't know, you can port to the Nightmare Realm soon for DPS on the to sort of clear out bellbearers and stuff. The problem with doing that is the game thinks you're still trying to get a symbol, so it spawns in. It doubles up snipers. So you're not only getting snipers from the DPS section or the DPS part, but you're getting the nightmare snipers, the ones that you would kill for symbols. Now that's more risk, right? And even though we're using Lament, I wouldn't recommend doing that because you're not getting much gain from doing that, right? The build will allow you to clear the bellbearers in time anyways, you know. So I wouldn't recommend that. I did try on a previous day Feast of Havoc on the bellbearers, the ones at DPS where you shoot the bell and you go in sooner. It didn't plan out as good as I hoped. It was Feast of Havoc slow, right, at killing these bellbearers, so I didn't go that route because you don't really need the super too much. The solar tooth is, the sword does everything, and the lightning grenades, sorry, the storm grenades. So the Front Crash is just doing that extra sweetener for damage. It's just a bit more. If you do mess up a combo, then you know you're getting a little bit more damage from your super and stuff. Try and jolt the boss before you do your super as well. So we're primed. We are on the final phase. Just clearing out some of these ads. Like I say, it's useful, the melee ability, just the fact that I can just get my health back off an uncharged melee, you know. So there is a good amount of survivability with Titan, for sure. So we're going to prime the towers. We're going to get into position. Middle bell bearers always. You could technically storm grenade. Sorry, I keep calling it lightning. You could storm grenade the other side, and then clear out the middle bell bearers with your fusion. That's also a tactic. Just know what you're doing if you do it, though. Make sure your time is not off as a result of that. So now we're just going to finish up on damage. Right. I'm just going to take it easy. I could have used a storm there, but we're going to leave a little sooner. I'll storm that side of the bellbearers. So look, it's actually dealing damage, right? Lo and behold, Caiatl does actually go that side, but look, the bellbearers are done. Very good. Generally, this would have been a bit of a fight. We'll do a bit of garden because we're taking a bit of damage there. I did get stomped. I think I let go of my guard a bit too soon off the glaive. We're just finishing up on damage. We're going to need one more bell. That's fine. We haven't even used our super yet. We've got a super. We've got storm grenade. We'll do a bit of block. Lightning grenade. Storm grenade, sorry. And then that was the solo floors for Duality. I hope you enjoy. Thank you.